everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Robin, or A Hobbit's Reading List, and today we are going to figure out what I will be reading in the month of April. So this month I don't really have a lot going on. I have 2 books that I need to read, which is about typical, but other than that I don't have any like special plans. I don't really have like a theme, besides trying where I can to be like fairly seasonal, keep it more like spring summer books, because that's kind of where my mind is at, even though the weather does not reflect that where I live. It's currently raining, which is springy, but it's also like 40 degrees. Ideally for spring I would prefer warmer rain. But that's where we're at. If you haven't seen any of my previous TBR game, I play a game called TBR Pursuit. I use a Trivial Pursuit board, which is the Lord of the Rings Trivia Pursuit board. Each color represents a different genre of the 6 most prevalent categories on my physical TBR, which is LGBT, romance, those are 2 separate ones, Jewish, fantasy, psychology, oh, and classics. I was like, I always miss one. I also use the bigger spots at the end of the spokes to be miscellaneous, so that accounts for all the other books that I have on my shelves. If I land on a purple roll again spot, that adds an additional book to my TBR, which kind of got to me last month. I ended up with 12 books on my TBR last month, but that was mainly because I was trying to avoid getting another psychology book. Someone very helpfully pointed out that if I landed on psychology again instead of a nonfiction book, I could read a psychological thriller. That is very true. However, I don't think I have any on my shelves. So if that ends up happening where I land on psychology more than once, I will maybe just go to the library and get a psychological thriller. But that's the game. I'm really interested to see what I'll be reading, and so let's just go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I also didn't explain, we start with 7 books. Like I said, if I land on a purple spot, then I will add an additional book, but our base is 7. So for the first roll, I get to pretty much decide where I want to start. For the 2 books that I have to read, I know one of them is LGBT or science fiction, but LGBT is obviously a genre that is represented here. The other one is a classic. So I'll probably start with LGBT. 3, which means I will go over here. Okay, and it is a book with a holiday, which I don't think fits in with the book that I need to get, but that's okay. So for the first book, I got a LGBT book with a holiday in it. My options were a little limited, or at the very least, my options were not very obvious that they had a holiday in it, except for like 3, 2 Hanukkah books and 1 Christmas book. And so I chose 8 Dates by E.M. Lindsey, and it is about this guy whose brother, wants to really like be there and support him, and wants to help him get over his ex, and so he sets his brother up on 8 dates, 1 for every day of Hanukkah, and the guy's like, okay, great. So he goes on the dates. They're not awesome, but the one bright spot is the bartender, Nova, who tends to step in and make the night not horrible. And so it's about these 2 men having it seems like a friends to lover, or like an acquaintance to friends to lovers kind of thing. It seems really cute. It's pretty short, and so I think I'll really enjoy it. So roll number 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which goes to Miscellaneous, which I pretty much have to do because 3 going this way would put me here, which is nothing. So, Miscellaneous. And it's a book about feminism, which there's only a few of these. Not because I have anything against feminism, but because most books about feminism tend to be nonfiction. So, for the second book, I got a feminist book, and as I predicted, all of them were nonfiction. Which is fine. I should read more nonfiction. I have a whole nonfiction section that I just have not read yet. So, I picked up The Ethical Slut by Hardy and Easton, and this is all about engaging in consensual non-monogamy ethically. And there are, for the most part, I think that this book is about, you know, consensual non-monogamy and how to navigate that. But I can understand why it's tagged as feminism, and so I'll be interested to see like where the feminist parts are. I have started reading this previously, but it looks like I only got to page 12. Because that has a dog ear. So that's, yeah, I think that's where I stopped. So, rule number 3, 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's classic, which I do need, 1, 2, 3, 4, or psychology. So I'm going to go ahead and go to classics. Okay, and it is a classic book with a holiday, which I don't know if that fits. Okay. A classic book with a holiday. I had to ask my dad about this, but the Wodehouse book that I have to read this month, which is Very Good Jeeves, which is within this collection. It's the middle book in this collection. There's a short story about, it says like Jeeves and Yuletide or something. Jeeves and the Yuletide Spirit. So, counts. So this is, it looks like a collection of short stories, 11. I don't recognize any of the titles, so I may not have read any of them already, which is kind of impressive. So, should be funny. And now I know that one of them has to do with Yule. For the fourth book, 1. Alright. So I can either do another LGBT or a roll again. I'm going to go ahead and go with LGBT because I'll be happy with pretty much anything in that category. Oh boy, and it's my biggest LGBT book, which I have a feeling is going to be a TJ Klune book. An LGBT book that is the biggest, which translates into has the most pages. I have been sort of putting this book off a little bit because I know that it's gonna be sad. But Ravensong by TJ Klune. They're big. Storygraph says like that this book is like 576 pages. I don't know if, yeah. This is 504, which that's fine. I think that's still up there with, it may not be the biggest, but I didn't want to look through all of like my physical books, and so I went by Storygraph. But I think this is, yes, probably the longest. This is a sequel. It is in the Green Creek series, which is about a pack of werewolves in Green Creek. And this story is following Gordo and Mark. This is a I think, an exes to lovers story, because I know they used to be together and then they broke up. But Gordo is a witch who works for the pack that Mark is a part of. And yeah, I remember the first book, which I read like maybe like a year and a half ago now at this point. The first book was like very, like, there are all sorts of twists and turns and drama and angst, but the banter was also really good. The relationship was really good. And I remember being very intrigued by Gordo and Mark and what happened in their relationship. So this will be very interesting. For the 5th roll, there's a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to Miscellaneous. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so orange is romance. Yeah. Alright. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Miscellaneous. What? And it's a horror book. Okay. Miscellaneous book that is horror. I did not have many. I think I had 6. And 3 of them were in the same series, which was Sandman. I was surprised. Sandman is tagged as fantasy as well, but I was surprised that it was tagged as horror, which, looking back on some of the stories that I know are in it, because I've actually read all of the stories, I think, that are within this volume. I've read them before a couple years ago. I could see how some of them are horror-based. I get it. So, I'm mainly rereading this because, A, I haven't read this edition yet, and B, so that I can read the other 2 editions that I have. But Sandman is about a dream of the Endless. The Endless is a group of 7 personifications of concepts. And so dream represents dreams. They're all very, like, obviously named. But he gets captured for over a century, and when he manages to escape, he has to essentially reclaim his kingdom, rebuild his kingdom, reforge relationships, and also figure out, like, is he going to learn from this? Because he has to also figure out, like, why he was able to be captured, because it shouldn't have been able to happen. And so it's really interesting. I really like the series that came out last year? 2 years ago? Whenever it came out. I don't know. But I know the books are similar in a lot of ways, or different in a lot of ways, so it'll be good to read it again. For the 6th roll, 3, 1, 2, 3, which is romance, 1, 2, 3, which is romance, 1, 2, 3, which is classic. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and go for romance then. And it's a romance book with a 1-word title. For a romance that is a 1-word title, I'm really just signing myself up for a little bit of heartbreak. Heartsong by TJ Klune. So this is the 3rd book in the Green Creek series. And they're being reprinted. That's why it's like the Barnes & Noble exclusive stickers here. They're being reprinted in these very nice editions. In this, we're actually being introduced to a new character, a new pack of wolves, and one of them, the new one, his name is Robbie. He's sent to sort of like investigate the Green Creek pack where he meets Kelly, who might be his mate. And so I don't remember a lot about Kelly, to be very honest. I think he's not the youngest. I think he's the 2nd youngest brother in the family. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to sort of look at like a Cliff Notes version of Wolfsong, which is the 1st book, and then obviously with Ravensong I'll get more information. So I can't really tell you much about that, especially because, like, as we get into the series, we're getting into like spoiler territory, so there you go. Alright, so what we'll probably be our last roll. Another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to miscellaneous. 2, 3, 4 or fantasy. Miscellaneous or fantasy. I'm gonna go miscellaneous. Why not? You know, sometimes you have to vary it up. You can't always do the genres that you love. Ooh, okay. Magical realism. For the last book in the TBR game, I got a book with magical realism, which is perfect because I have to read Tentacle by Rita, Indiana. It is a translated book from an author from the Dominican Republic. And it definitely has magical realism in it because I've already read the first 50 pages. But it is about this person named Isilde who transitions into a man, but then is also sent back in time to prevent this like catastrophic ecological disaster. And quite honestly, I'm still confused by it. But it's very, very interesting. I have to read it for my post-colonial literature in Latin America class. Like I said, I read 50 pages. There's only 132 pages. So I'm still waiting to see like how everything ties together. But I know there's a dual timeline because I've already seen it. And it's graphic. The language is very harsh. But I kind of like it, which I'm surprised. I don't normally like things that are like darker, and I especially don't like reading about climate change because climate change freaks me out. And I avoid thinking about it at all costs because then I've had a panic attack about it before. But now I have to read about it, so great. Other than that, I do have a consequence book because I did not read more than 3 books last month, which is not surprising because I ended up with 12. So, but for the consequence book, I just have my dad pick a book from my list. I have no real sway over it. And he's being very nice to me. He picked This Winter by Alice Oseman, which I do have on the shelf, but I'm lazy. So here you go. And it is a novella set in the Heartsong universe that is about, I believe, when Charlie comes back from rehab. I believe that's sort of when it's set. It's set over the winter holidays. And I think there's a lot of like angst. I know Charlie gets into a fight with his mom, but there's also a lot of like fluff because it's Nick and Charlie. And it's short. And I originally asked Dad if he picked it as a consequence book because it's out of season. But he wasn't thinking about that at all. he was just being nice. But I'm choosing to look at it as like it is a consequence book because it's out of season, and that does bother me a little bit, but I still think I will like it. So those are the books that I will be reading in April. Overall, not horrible. I don't think that there's a reason I shouldn't be able to read them all, quite honestly. Or at the very least, most of them. So, yeah. But let me know if you have read any of these books. If you have any interest in reading any of these books, we can talk about it. So leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, click the notification bell, and make sure you check out my vlogs because then you can see my opinions in real time. But otherwise, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!